The cave system was exactly as Kilira remembered it, carved deep into ancient stone cliffs that predated most current civilizations. She laid the human child on a flat section of cool rock, away from the harsh sunlight that poured through the cave entrance. For the first time in 3 days she allowed herself to rest, her massive body settling with a ground-shaking thud that sent small rocks skittering across the floor. Water first. She knew that much about mammalian biology. The child was severely dehydrated, his body shutting down from lack of fluids. Deep within the cave system, she remembered a spring that bubbled up from underground aquifers, fresh and clean. She made her way through passages that forced her to crawl, her scales scraping against stone, until she found it. The water pooled in a natural basin, crystal clear and cold. But how to carry it back? Kilira returned to the crashed escape pod, tearing through the wreckage with careful precision until she found what she needed. Fabric from the seats, synthetic but clean enough. She soaked the material in the spring water, then brought it back to the child, squeezing drops into his cracked lips. At first nothing happened, but then his throat moved involuntarily, swallowing. She repeated the process dozens of times over the next hour, patient in a way she hadn't been since her own hatchlings were young. His wounds needed attention too. Long gashes across his arms and legs, burns from the pod's failing systems, bruises that covered half his small body. Kilira used more fabric to clean the injuries as best she could, her massive claws performing surgery with unexpected delicacy. She had done this before long ago when her hatchlings hurt themselves learning to fly. The memory brought pain but also purpose. Her claws remembered this gentle work even if her heart had tried to forget. For 3 days the child didn't wake. Kilira kept vigil, leaving only to hunt for food and gather more water. She caught desert lizards and cooked them with a careful breath of flame, placed them near the child in case he woke hungry. She monitored his breathing, his heart rate, the color slowly returning to his skin. Human bodies were fragile but surprisingly resilient when given the chance to heal. On the third evening, as the twin moons cast silver light through the cave entrance, his eyes finally opened. Kilira expected screaming. Every prey species instinct should have kicked in the moment this child saw a creature 50 times his size looming over him. Dragons were apex predators, massive and terrifying by design. She had seen grown warriors from a dozen species freeze in fear at her approach. But this human child simply blinked, his gaze focusing slowly on her enormous reptilian face, and then did something completely unexpected. He smiled weakly and whispered 2 words in halting galactic common. "Thank you." His voice was rough from disuse and dehydration, barely audible, but the gratitude was genuine. Kilira felt something crack inside her chest, some wall she had built around her grief. She lowered her massive head closer, studying him with one enormous eye. "You speak?" she asked, her voice rumbling through the cave like distant thunder. "Little bit," the boy managed. "Dad taught me. Before." He trailed off and Kilira understood. Before whatever disaster separated him from his family. Before the crash. Before everything went wrong. "I am called Kilira," she said gently. "You are safe here." "Tyler," the boy responded. "I'm Tyler." He tried to sit up but winced, his injuries protesting. Kilira carefully positioned her foreleg behind him, creating a warm scaled backrest. Tyler leaned against it naturally, as if seeking comfort from a dragon was the most normal thing in the galaxy. Over the following weeks, something unprecedented began to develop between them. Kilira taught Tyler how to survive in the desert, knowledge accumulated over centuries. She showed him how to find water by listening to the earth, placing his small hands on the sand and feeling for the subtle vibrations that indicated underground moisture. She taught him which desert plants were edible and which would kill him, how to read the position of stars for navigation, how to predict sandstorms by the taste of the wind. Tyler proved remarkably adaptable. His human mind, quick and flexible in ways more advanced species often weren't, absorbed everything she taught him. He asked constant questions, that endless curiosity that seemed built into human nature. Why do the rocks change color at sunset? How deep do the caves go? Can you really fly above the atmosphere? His enthusiasm was infectious, reminding Kilira of her own hatchling's endless wonder at the world. But Tyler gave back more than he took. During the long desert evenings, when the temperature dropped and stars filled the sky in brilliant displays, he told her stories. Stories of Earth, that distant blue world where humans evolved. He described forests where trees grew so thick you couldn't see the sky, oceans that stretched beyond the horizon, snow that fell from clouds and covered everything in white. His mother Beth had been a teacher who read him books every night. His father Jack worked on cargo ships, traveling between Earth and the outer colonies, always bringing back gifts from distant worlds. They were coming to get me, Tyler explained one night, his voice small. I was staying with my aunt on the colony station. Dad's ship had a malfunction. They said the engines failed. They said everyone launched escape pods but the navigation systems were damaged. I don't know if anyone else made it. He didn't cry, though Kilira could see the effort it took to hold back tears. Humans felt emotions intensely, she knew, but this child was trying to be brave. She curved her wing around him, creating a sheltered space where he could be small and hurt without judgment. I lost my children too, Kilira said quietly. All of them. I understand your pain. Tyler looked up at her with eyes far too old for his young face. Then we're both alone. Perhaps, Kilira agreed. Or perhaps we have found each other. Something shifted between them in that moment. Tyler scooted closer to her massive form, and Kilira adjusted her position to make him more comfortable. They sat together in companionable silence, watching the twin moons track across the sky. Over the next weeks, Kilira realized that Tyler's presence was healing something inside her she thought was permanently broken. The hollow ache that had consumed her since losing her hatchlings began to fill with new purpose. Teaching Tyler, protecting him, watching him grow stronger each day, these things mattered. His laughter when she showed him how to glide on thermal updrafts, clutched safely in her claws, was the first joy she had felt in months. And Tyler, for his part, stopped flinching at every sound in the darkness. His nightmares became less frequent. He started to relax, to play, to act like the child he was instead of a survivor constantly on guard. One morning, Kilira woke to find him curled against her side, using her foreleg as a pillow, sleeping peacefully for the first time since the crash. She didn't move, afraid to wake him. Instead, she simply watched him breathe, this small fragile human who had somehow become precious to her. She wasn't protecting a random creature anymore. She was protecting her child. The realization should have frightened her, all the ways this violated dragon customs and biological imperatives. But instead, it felt like coming home after a long journey. It felt right in a way nothing had felt right since the attack. Tyler stirred, opening his eyes and smiling up at her. Morning, Kilira. Good morning, little one, she rumbled back and meant it with every fiber of her being. The surveillance drone captured footage for exactly 8 seconds before Kilira spotted it and destroyed it with a concentrated burst of flame. But 8 seconds was more than enough. The data transmitted instantly across subspace channels, bouncing through relay stations until it reached Valorian Empire headquarters 3 systems away. Commander Thex received the alert in his private quarters, interrupting his meditation cycle. He pulled up the footage on his personal display and watched it 3 times in succession, his forearms tensing with excitement. There she was. Kilira, the Dragon Queen of the Crystalline Peaks, very much alive despite reports suggesting she had gone into hiding or possibly died from grief. The footage showed her near the Meridian Desert, which made no sense strategically but didn't matter. What mattered was that she represented the single most valuable biological specimen in this entire sector. Dragon DNA could be worth millions on the genetic research market. Their cellular regeneration capabilities alone could revolutionize medicine across a dozen species. Their flame production organs defied current scientific understanding. And Kilira, as one of the oldest living dragons, would provide the most pristine samples. Thex had ordered the raid on her nest specifically to draw her out, to make her vulnerable and emotional. Dragons were dangerous when calm and calculating, but grief made them sloppy. He had expected her to come seeking revenge, making mistakes that would allow for easy capture. Instead, she had vanished completely for months. Until now. He began assembling his hunter squadron immediately. 6 ships, each equipped with military-grade energy nets designed specifically for large organic targets. Tranquilizer drones loaded with enough sedative to drop a creature 10 times Kilira's size. Thermal tracking systems calibrated to dragon biology. Sonic disruptors to interfere with her flight patterns. This wasn't Thex's first dragon hunt, though it would certainly be his most profitable. The squadron launched within 4 hours, jumping through hyperspace toward the Meridian Desert coordinates. Thex commanded the operation from his flagship, already composing the report he would submit to High Command after Kilira's capture. This would earn him a promotion, possibly even a seat on the military council. He smiled, showing rows of sharp teeth. The Dragon Queen's grief would become his triumph. Meanwhile, in the cave system 30 miles from where the drone had spotted them, Tyler was discovering something remarkable about himself. He had woken from a dream where Kilira was calling his name, only she hadn't been speaking out loud. He had heard her voice directly in his mind, crystal clear, asking if he was all right. At first he thought he was still dreaming. But when he opened his eyes, Kilira was staring at him with surprise in her ancient gaze. "You heard me," she said aloud, wonder in her rumbling voice. "Tyler, you heard my telepathic communication. Is that unusual?" Tyler asked, sitting up and rubbing sleep from his eyes. "Extremely. Only dragon kind can naturally interpret our telepathic frequencies. Some species with extensive training can learn to sense basic emotions, but actual clear communication? That should be impossible for humans." Tyler concentrated, trying to reach back the way he had heard her. He thought her name as loudly as he could in his mind. Kilira's eyes widened further. "I hear you," she said quietly. "Faint but clear enough. This bond between us, it runs deeper than I realized." They spent the next hour experimenting, Tyler learning to project thoughts and receive Kilira's mental communications. It was exhausting, giving him a headache after extended use, but it worked. They could communicate silently across the entire cave system. For reasons neither of them fully understood, this human child could do something that supposedly only dragons could do. "We should practice this," Kilira suggested. "It may prove useful." She had no idea how prophetic those words would be. 2 days later, Tyler was outside the cave entrance, practicing the water-finding technique Kilira had taught him, when he spotted something that made his blood run cold. Glints of metal in the sky, reflecting the harsh desert sun. Ships. Multiple ships. And they were definitely not commercial traffic passing through. Tyler didn't shout a warning. Instead, he reached out with his mind the way he had been practicing. "Kilira, ships coming. From the north. A lot of them." The response came instantly. "How many?" Tyler counted quickly, squinting against the bright sky. 6. "They're spreading out like they're searching for something." "They're searching for me. Come inside quickly." Tyler sprinted for the cave entrance, sliding through just as Kilira positioned herself protectively over him. Through their mental link, he could feel her fear, not for herself but for him. She was calculating odds, running through scenarios, trying to figure out how to keep him safe. "Can we hide?" Tyler asked, both aloud and mentally. "Perhaps. But they have tracking equipment. If they get close enough, they will find us." Kilira's mind was racing, and Tyler could sense fragments of her thoughts. Images of her destroyed nest. Memories of Valorian raiders. A name, Thex. The ships began a systematic search pattern, flying in coordinated sweeps across the desert. Tyler watched from the cave entrance as they grew closer. The ships were sleek and dangerous looking, bristling with equipment he didn't recognize. His heart pounded in his chest, but he forced himself to stay calm and observe. His father had taught him that panicking never helped. Instead, you watch, you learn, you find advantages. "They're flying low," Tyler noted. "Really low. Like they're trying to look under rock overhangs." "Thermal scanning," Kilira explained. "Looking for my heat signature. Dragon bodies run hotter than most species. But these caves are naturally warm from geothermal activity. It may confuse their sensors." For 2 hours, they waited in tense silence as the ships searched. Twice, vessels passed directly over their position. Tyler held his breath both times, pressed against Kilira's scales. But the ships moved on, continuing their search pattern. Just when Tyler thought they might actually escape notice, everything went wrong. One of the tranquilizer drones, flying a separate search pattern from the main ships, detected something. It hovered near the cave entrance, sensors probing. Tyler saw it through a crack in the rocks, a small mechanical thing about the size of a basketball, bristling with injection needles and a scanning array. "Don't move," Kilira's mental voice was barely a whisper in his mind. But the drone had already locked onto something. It began transmitting a signal, calling the hunter ships to its location. Within minutes, all 6 vessels were converging on the cave system. Thex's voice boomed from external speakers, amplified and confident. "Kilira of the Crystalline Peaks. You are surrounded. Surrender yourself for processing and we will make this quick and painless. Resist and we will take you by force. Either way, you will come with us." Tyler felt Kilira's muscles tense beneath her scales. She was preparing to fight, to defend their position against impossible odds. But fighting meant exposing herself, meant potentially getting captured or killed. And if she was captured, what would happen to him? Left alone in the desert, he wouldn't last 3 days. "Wait," Tyler whispered, an idea forming. "I have a plan. But you have to trust me." Through their mental bond, he felt Kilira's curiosity mixed with concern. "Tell me." Tyler began explaining quickly, his young mind working through possibilities that only a human might see. The Valorians had better technology, more firepower, superior numbers. But they were relying entirely on that technology. They were hunting a dragon, expecting dragon behavior, dragon tactics. They weren't expecting a human child who grew up watching nature documentaries and playing hide-and-seek in cargo ship corridors. "It is risky," Kilira said after hearing his plan. "Everything is risky now," Tyler pointed out. "But doing nothing gets us caught for sure." Kilira was quiet for a long moment. Then, "Very well. We move together. And Tyler? Stay close to me. No matter what happens." "No matter what," Tyler agreed and meant it with everything in his small, brave heart. Tyler's plan was simple in the way only a child's plan could be simple, which was exactly what made it brilliant. The Valorians were hunting with advanced technology, scanning for heat signatures and biological markers, tracking movement with precision equipment worth more than some small planets. But all that sophisticated gear shared one critical weakness. It made them stop looking with their actual eyes. "They're watching screens inside those ships," Tyler had explained to Kilira. "My dad used to complain about it all the time. Said newer pilots couldn't navigate without instruments, that they forgot how to actually see what was around them." The first part of Tyler's plan involved something the Valorians would never expect. Movement toward them rather than away. While the hunter ships positioned themselves around the cave entrance, engines thrumming with contained power, Kilira slipped out through a back passage Tyler had discovered during his explorations. The passage was narrow, almost too narrow even for Tyler to squeeze through, but it opened into a canyon system that ran parallel to their cave. Kilira moved with a silence that seemed impossible for a creature her size. Centuries of experience had taught her how to position each claw, how to distribute her weight, how to flow through spaces like water rather than forcing her way through. Tyler clung to her back, his small body pressed flat against her scales, barely breathing. Through their mental link, he could feel her absolute focus, her determination to keep him safe no matter what happened next. They emerged 200 yards from where the Valorian ships were concentrating their attention. Commander Thex was still broadcasting demands into the cave, his voice echoing off stone walls, completely unaware that his prey had already escaped. Tyler allowed himself a tiny smile. "Step 1 complete. Now we need them to follow us," Tyler whispered both aloud and mentally. "But not catch us. Not yet." Kilira understood. She positioned herself on a high ridge where the ships would spot her easily, then released a roar that shook the desert air. It was a challenge, a declaration of defiance that couldn't be ignored. Every Valorian sensor locked onto her position instantly. Tyler felt the exact moment they were spotted through the sudden surge of excitement in Kilira's mind. The hunt was on. The dragon launched into the air with Tyler secured on her back, flying fast but not her absolute fastest. The ships pursued immediately, breaking their formation around the cave. Thex's voice came through their external speakers again, angry now that he realized she had tricked him. "All units, pursue and contain. Do not let her reach open space." The ships were faster than Kilira in a straight line, their engines more powerful than even dragon wings. But Tyler had counted on that. What he was betting on was that they would rely on their speed and technology rather than thinking tactically. And for the first few minutes of pursuit, that's exactly what happened. The ships chased them across the desert in a straight line, firing energy nets that Kilira dodged with centuries of flight experience. "Turn into the canyons," Tyler directed mentally. "The narrow ones where the walls are close." Kilira dove between two massive rock formations, her wings tucking tight to her body. The passage was barely wide enough for her bulk, the stone walls close enough that Tyler could have reached out and touched them if he dared let go. Behind them, the Valorian ships had to slow down, their instruments screaming warnings about collision risks. This was the advantage Tyler had recognized. The Valorians were watching their screens, trusting their proximity sensors and collision avoidance systems. They weren't actually looking at the terrain with their own eyes, weren't processing it the way a human child who grew up playing in tight spaces would process it. Tyler had spent 3 weeks exploring these canyons on foot. He knew every twist, every turn, every place where the walls squeezed together or opened unexpectedly. "Left at the next fork," Tyler called out. "Then immediate right, there's a passage that looks too small but isn't." Kilira followed his directions without hesitation, trusting his human eyes and his intimate knowledge of this terrain. The ships behind them weren't so lucky. 2 of them took the wrong passage at the fork, their sensors indicating it was wider, not realizing that it dead-ended 50 yards in. By the time they reversed course, Kilira and Tyler had gained precious distance. But Thex wasn't completely incompetent. He recognized they were being outmaneuvered and changed tactics. "Spread out. Cut off the canyon exits. Drive them into the open desert where we have the advantage. Tyler felt Kilira's concern through their bond. The commander was right. Eventually they would be forced out of the canyons, and in open space the ships would catch them easily. They needed a different approach. Tyler's mind raced, thinking through everything he had observed over the past 2 days of watching these ships search. They're energy weapons, Tyler said suddenly. I've been watching where they vent the heat. There's an exhaust port on the underside right behind the cockpit. Every time they fire, hot air blasts out and disturbs the sand below them. And this helps us how? Kilira asked, dodging another energy net. Because I know where sand isn't stable. There's a whole section near the cliff face where it looks solid but it's actually loose, sitting on top of smooth rock. My feet slid right out from under me when I walked there last week. If we can get them to fire their weapons in that area, the heat exhaust will disturb the sand and underneath. Unstable ground, Kilira finished. They will have difficulty maintaining position. More than that, Tyler said, his plan crystallizing. Above that area the cliff face is already cracked. I saw it. Big cracks running all the way up. Dad taught me about structural weakness. He said you can always tell when something is ready to fall, you just have to know what to look for. Kilira understood immediately. You want to bring the cliff down on them. Can you do it? With your roar? If the structure is as weak as you describe, yes. Dragon roar operates at specific frequencies that can shatter stone. But Tyler, this is extremely dangerous. We will need to be very close and timing must be perfect. I know, Tyler said quietly. But they're not giving us much choice. They emerged from the canyon system exactly where Tyler had planned, near the unstable section with the cracked cliff face looming above. Kilira landed deliberately, making herself an obvious target. The remaining 4 ships converged immediately, sensing an end to the chase. Commander Thex's ship took point, positioning itself directly between Kilira and the open desert, cutting off her escape route. Surrender now, Thex's voice boomed. You cannot escape. You are only delaying the inevitable. Tyler studied the ship's positions with intensity his teachers back on Earth would have never seen from him during math class. 3 of the ships were hovering in the perfect zone, right over the unstable sand. The 4th, Thex's flagship, was slightly off to the side. Close enough, Tyler decided. It would have to be close enough. Get ready, he whispered to Kilira. When they fire, you roar. Aim for the cliff face right where those big cracks meet. The ships fired simultaneously, multiple energy nets launching toward Kilira. She dodged, her movements precise, and the nets hit sand and rock behind her. Exactly as Tyler predicted, the ship's heat exhaust ports vented burning air downward, disturbing the sand beneath them. The loose grains began shifting, sliding, the ship's stabilization system struggling to compensate for the suddenly unstable ground they were hovering above. And Kilira roared. It wasn't just sound. It was concentrated fury, maternal rage, centuries of draconic power focused into a single devastating blast of sonic force. The roar hit the cliff face at exactly the right angle, at exactly the right frequency. The cracks that Tyler had spotted, the structural weaknesses that had been developing for years, suddenly became catastrophic failures. The cliff came down like an avalanche of judgment. Thousands of tons of rock, some pieces the size of small buildings, crashed down directly onto the Valorian ships. 2 of them were crushed instantly, their shields unable to handle the sheer mass of stone. A 3rd ship's engines failed, sending it spinning into the desert floor where it crumpled like paper. Thex's flagship, positioned slightly to the side, took a glancing blow that tore off one of its wings and sent it into an uncontrolled crash landing. The dust settled slowly, revealing the devastation. Tyler's simple observation, his human ability to read terrain and structure without sophisticated instruments, had just defeated a military squadron equipped with technology centuries more advanced than anything Earth had produced. Thex crawled from his damaged flagship, 3 of his 4 arms hanging uselessly. He looked up to see Kilira landing in front of him, with a small human child sitting calmly on her back. The child who had outthought his entire tactical approach using nothing but observation skills and courage. How? Thex managed to gasp. Tyler simply smiled. My dad taught me to pay attention. The Galactic Assembly investigation team arrived 3 days after the battle, their white diplomatic ships descending onto the desert like cautious birds. They had received distress signals from the crashed Valorian vessels, followed by a confusing series of reports that made no sense when pieced together. A dragon queen protecting a human child. A military squadron defeated by an avalanche. Commander Thex in custody, arrested by his own surviving crew members who were furious about being led into an illegal hunting operation. Kilira and Tyler waited at the cave entrance, watching the diplomatic team set up their equipment. Tyler sat cross-legged on a flat rock, while Kilira's massive form curved protectively around him. Through their mental bond he could feel her nervousness. Not for herself, but for what might happen to him if the assembly decided their relationship violated some law she wasn't aware of. The head investigator was a Valerian named Kess, a species known for their strict adherence to protocol and regulation. She approached slowly, her 3 eyes taking in every detail, recording devices hovering around her head like curious insects. When she spoke, her voice was neutral, carefully professional. "I am Investigator Kess. I need to understand exactly what has transpired here. Commander Thex claims you attacked his squadron without provocation. He states he was conducting a legitimate search and rescue operation when you assaulted his vessels." "That's a lie," Tyler said before Kilira could respond. His voice was clear and strong, without the hesitation most children showed when speaking to authority figures. "He was hunting Kilira. He attacked her nest months ago and killed her children. He came here to capture her for illegal genetic experiments." Kess's middle eye focused entirely on Tyler. "You are human. What is your connection to this situation?" "Kilira saved my life. My escape pod crashed in the desert. I would have died, but she found me and kept me alive. She's been taking care of me for almost 2 months now. She's..." Tyler paused, searching for the right words. "She's my family." The word hung in the air like something physical. Kess made notes on her recording device, her expression unreadable. Over the next 6 hours she interviewed both of them separately, then together. She examined the crash site of Tyler's escape pod, confirmed his identity through Earth registries, verified that his parents had indeed died when their transport ship suffered catastrophic engine failure. She investigated the destroyed Valorian ships, pulled data from their computers, and discovered evidence of Thex's orders to raid Kilira's nest. The interviews continued for days. More assembly representatives arrived, including a human diplomat named Ambassador Patricia Rivera from Earth's delegation. She was a middle-aged woman with kind eyes and a no-nonsense attitude that reminded Tyler of his aunt. She sat with him privately, asking gentle questions about his time with Kilira. "Are you being held against your will?" she asked carefully. "What? No." Tyler looked shocked at the suggestion. "Kilira saved me. She taught me how to survive. She protected me from those ships. Why would you think she's holding me prisoner?" "Because the situation is unprecedented, Tyler. A dragon raising a human child. There are no protocols for this. Some representatives argue that different species cannot form legitimate family bonds, that biology matters more than emotional connection." Tyler felt anger rising in his chest, hot and fierce. "That's stupid. Family isn't just about biology. My dad used to say family is the people who show up when things get hard. Kilira showed up. She's been showing up every single day since she found me. How is that not family?" Patricia smiled slightly. "I happen to agree with you. But I'm not the only voice in this decision. The Assembly will vote on whether to recognize your relationship with Kilira as legitimate, or whether to separate you and place you in human foster care." The thought of being separated from Kilira made Tyler's stomach twist with fear. Over the weeks they had been together, she had become more than just his protector. She was his teacher, his friend, his mother in every way that mattered. The idea of losing her felt like losing his parents all over again. The formal hearing took place in a temporary structure the Assembly built near the cave system. Representatives from 40 member species attended, either in person or via hologram. Kilira was required to testify first, answering questions about her intentions, her capabilities as a guardian, her understanding of human developmental needs. "I will not pretend to know everything about raising a human child," Kilira said, her voice steady despite the scrutiny. "But I know how to love. I know how to protect. I know how to teach and nurture. These things are not unique to any species. They are universal among those who care for the young." A representative from the Turellian Union, a species that prided itself on strict social hierarchies, challenged her. "But can you provide appropriate socialization? Human children need to be around their own kind to develop properly. You cannot teach him human culture, human values, human ways of being." "No," Kilira agreed. "I cannot teach him to be only human. But Tyler will never be only human anymore. He has survived things most adult humans never face. He has learned to communicate telepathically, to read terrain with dragon-trained senses, to think tactically under pressure. I can teach him to be himself, which is something unique and valuable." Is that not what all parents should do? When it was Tyler's turn to testify, he walked to the center of the assembly floor with his head held high. He was small among all these aliens, just a 9-year-old human boy in borrowed clothes, but he refused to be intimidated. My dad used to tell me stories about Earth's history, Tyler began. About how humans used to think families could only look one way. That differences made love impossible. But he said humanity got smarter, learned that families come in all kinds of forms, and love is love regardless of how it looks from the outside. I thought the galaxy would be smarter than old Earth. I thought advanced civilizations would understand that family is about choice, about commitment, about showing up for each other. Was I wrong? The assembly chamber fell silent. Some representatives looked uncomfortable. Others seemed thoughtful. Ambassador Rivera stood up, requesting permission to speak. I move that we recognize Tyler's relationship with Kilira as legitimate family adoption. The first cross-species adoption in galactic history. Not because it's easy or because it fits our existing protocols, but because it's right. Because these two individuals have demonstrated everything that family should mean. Care, protection, sacrifice, love. If we reject this bond because it doesn't fit our paperwork categories, what does that say about us as a civilization? The debate lasted another 4 hours. Arguments for and against, discussions of precedent and policy, concerns about setting dangerous examples versus celebrating new possibilities. Finally, investigator Kess called for a vote. The results came through slowly as each species delegation registered their decision. 53% in favor. It was close, far closer than Tyler had hoped, but it was enough. The assembly recognized Kilira as his legal guardian, and Tyler as her adopted offspring. The first cross-species family in recorded galactic history. That night, back in their cave system, Tyler sat beside Kilira watching the twin moons rise. He felt exhausted emotionally, drained from the stress of potentially losing everything that mattered. Kilira's wing curved around him gently. What happens now? Tyler asked quietly. Now we rebuild, Kilira said. The Crystalline Peaks fortress is still standing. We can make it a home again. For us, and perhaps for others who need sanctuary. Others? Our story will spread, Tyler. There are orphans across the galaxy. Beings who have lost their families, their homes, their hope. If we can create a place where species learn from each other's strengths, where family is defined by choice rather than biology, perhaps we can help them too. The idea took root in Tyler's imagination. A place where a Tyrillian mechanic could teach human children about engineering. Where dragon wisdom could combine with human adaptability. Where loss could transform into new beginnings. News of their story did spread, faster than either of them anticipated. Within 6 months, they received communication from dozens of individuals seeking sanctuary. A young Crystonian whose hive rejected her for genetic differences. An elderly Porathian who had outlived his entire family. 3 orphaned human siblings from a colony disaster. Slowly, carefully, Kilira and Tyler began building something new in the Crystalline Peaks. 15 years later, Tyler stood at the highest point of the fortress, looking out over a community that shouldn't exist according to traditional thinking. Below him, 5 different species worked together on infrastructure projects. Children of various backgrounds played games that mixed traditions from a dozen worlds. The sanctuary had become proof that family could transcend every boundary if you let it. Tyler was 24 now, tall and confident, trained in both dragon wisdom and human ingenuity. He had become a mediator in the Galactic Assembly, using his unique upbringing to bridge cultural divides. But no matter how far his work took him, he always came home to the Crystalline Peaks, to Kilira. She found him on the high tower as evening fell, her scales catching the light of 2 setting suns. Thinking deep thoughts? She asked, settling beside him. Just remembering, Tyler said, smiling. Remembering a day when I thought I'd die alone in a desert. When everything seemed hopeless. And now I'm home. Tyler leaned against her foreleg the same way he had as a frightened child. You saved me that day, you know. Not just from the desert. From loneliness. From believing I'd lost everything that mattered. Kilira's ancient eyes reflected starlight. You saved me too, young one. You reminded me that love doesn't die when we lose those we cherish. It simply finds new forms, new expressions. We save each other every day by choosing to be family. Below them, the sanctuary glowed with lights from 100 windows, each one representing a life rebuilt, a hope restored, a family redefined. The Dragon Queen who had lost everything learned that sometimes the greatest treasures come wrapped in the smallest packages, from the most unexpected places. And the human boy who crashed alone in a desert discovered that home isn't a place or a species. Home is wherever someone loves you enough to stay, to fight, to build something beautiful from the ashes of what was lost. Together they had created something the galaxy desperately needed. Proof that differences make us stronger, that family is choice, and that sometimes the bravest thing anyone can do is love someone the universe says you shouldn't. As the twin moons rose over the crystalline peaks, two souls who saved each other watched in comfortable silence, knowing they had found what everyone searches for across the stars. They had found belonging. They had found purpose. They had found home in each other, and that made all the difference.